Alright guys, what's going on? Today we're going to work on some fractions. So we got add, subtract, multiply, and divide in fractions. So we'll go ahead and get started here. So you can see a lot of times over on the right hand side I'll highlight something that I really want you to be able to remember. So on this one it's really just the common denominator, right? So the one thing, just don't do this. The 2/3 plus 1/4, don't say this equals 3/7. Just kill me if you write that. That will be one of the answer choices most likely, right? So if nothing else, eliminate the stupid answer, right? Don't just add these things together and think you're done. Okay, what we do need to do is find common denominator. What that means is, so these numbers on the bottom, right? You got a 3 down here, and we got a 4 down here, right? These numbers are called denominators. They're on the bottom of fractions. For what it's worth, on the top is you have these numerators, right? That's what those are called. But common denominator, what that means is the denominator, this number on the bottom, has to be the same on both of them so that we can add them together. Right now we have a 3 and a 4, we can't add those together. Okay, so what we're going to do is, all right, so we'll go 2/3, and we're going to multiply numbers that the bottom is the same, right? So if you can't figure out what you're supposed to multiply it by, just multiply them together, right? 3 times 4 equals 12. So we want the denominator to be 12 for both of these. So how are we going to do that, right? 2/3, and then we're just going to multiply this guy times 4 over 4. We can do that no problem, right? We're just going to have the number, the numerator, the number on the top, and the denominator, number on the bottom the same, right? And then we're just going to multiply these out. 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 4, 12. Okay. 8/12 is really the same as 2/3, but now we've got that 12 at the bottom. Now we need to do the same exact thing for the other one, right? 1/4. Now don't go multiplying by 4 over 4 again, because then we would get 16 on the bottom. 16 is a denominator. So on this one we're going to multiply by 3 over 3. Right? Really, when you're doing these, like 4 over 4, 4/4 just equals 1. 4 divided by 4 equals 1, right? And when we multiply anything by 1, it just equals itself. So 2/3 times 1 still equals 2/3, right? It's just a bigger, it looks bigger, but it's 8/12 and 2/3 are the same fraction. All right, 1 times 3, just multiplying across here, is 3. 4 times 3 is 12. Okay, there we go. Now we've got two fractions that have 12 in the denominator, right? So then what we end up with is 8/12. All right, we were adding these together, plus 3/12 equals, whoops, I do that sometimes, 11/12. All right, and there's going to be your answer. That's the correct answer, is 11 over 12. Okay, and that's really how we're going to go about doing that, right? Really pretty straightforward. Takes a little bit of time, but once you get used to it, I think you're going to feel like, it's no problem at all. Definitely got to make sure you practice these out, and then you're good to go. All right, let's get rid of this thing. A little erasing here for a second, so we get to have our reminder for common denominator. And our blue and green ink up here. Okay, and then what happens if we have to subtract them? Okay, so on this one we'll go, what do we want to do? 3, whoops, still got the eraser on there. Okay, 3/4 is times minus 1/5. Okay, so same thing. Definitely don't let the answer be like 3 minus 1 is 2, 4 minus 5 is -1, and then you say, oh, the answer is -2 over 1, right, or something like that. Again, can't just do that with adding. When we multiply, we can do that. We're going to do that in a second, right? But with adding and subtracting, we have to go and find, guess what, this common denominator, right? So remember, we just did that when 4 and 3 were on the bottom. We just multiplied them together. Okay, we're going to do the same thing again. 4 times 5 is 20, right? So that's going to be the denominator, or the number on the bottom. And then we've got to go through the exact same process. Right, so it's good to get practice on these, and it's really good for you to look at the problem and to do them yourself first, and then go and watch the video and see if you did it right. Right, or if you get stuck, then go and watch the video. It's obvious when you watch somebody else do it. Okay, so we got 3 over 4 times 5 over 5, right? Because we want that denominator to be 20. So that 3 times 5 is 15. Okay, so we got 15 over 20. Okay, 3/4 equals 15 over 20. They're the exact same thing. And then we got to figure out what we're doing with 1/5, right? 1. You'll see me do that in every freaking video, right? A couple of times probably. Okay, now 1 over 5. 5 times what equals 20? 5 times 4. Right? Really just got to be comfortable with some simple multiplication. Right, and that shows up quite a bit on the test, right? You got to be comfortable with some simple multiplication and just know a few of these rules. Four over 20, right? So we got 15 over 20, 4 over 20, right? And then at the end of the day, we just go back and we're subtracting these, right? 3/4 equals 15 over 20. We'll do this over here. 15 over 20, don't you love my handwriting, minus, then we have 4 over 20. Okay, and once we have this denominator the same, we're just going to subtract the two numerators, the two numbers on the top. That 20 will stay the same. As long as the denominators are the same, you just leave it the same in the final answer. That's how it works. All right, 15 minus 4 is 11. We end up with 11 out of 20, or 11/20. If you want to be technically correct. All right, there we go. So there was some work on common denominators, huh? So the multiplication is the easiest, although sometimes the numbers are a little bit bigger, but you have less work to do, which is always nice. Okay, all right, so if we're multiplying, then we're just looking at, like, let's go ahead and do same numbers, 3, or I think it's the same numbers anyway. Short-term memory, it's failing me. 3/4 times 1/5. Okay, so then how do we do that? So they were just multiplying the two numerators together, the two numbers on the top together, and the two numbers on the bottom together. So 3 times 1 is 3, 4 times 5 is 20. Wasn't that fun? 3 out of 20, right? So that one takes about 10 seconds. Okay, and then we'll do one last one here. Okay, so multiplication is probably the easiest one to remember. This one has something you haven't seen yet. Got a little division sign going. All right, we'll do the exact same thing. Same numbers, keeping the numbers steady here. Okay, 3/4 divided by 1 over 5. Okay, so on this number right here, this fraction, 1/5, we need the reciprocal. Okay, I'm gonna write it all out, but we'll do REC. Reciprocal, right? That's the key. Reciprocal, what does that mean? That means flip them. So 1 out of 5 is going to equal 5 out of 1, and then we multiply them together. It's just something that you have to memorize, right? Because it's not complicated, right? So all that ends up happening is that you have 3 out of 4 times 5 out of 1, right? And then you're just doing what you did just a second ago up at the top, and then you're just going to multiply these together. Multiply the two numerators together. 3 times 5 is 15. And the two denominators together. 4 times 1 is 4. We end up with 15/4 for our answer. But that's the key thing to remember when you're dividing fractions. That second fraction, you got to flip it, or it's commonly referred to as the reciprocal. But you just got to flip it. So what was on the bottom is now on the top. What was on the top is now on the bottom, and you multiply them together. If you're just not used to this, or something you heard a long time ago but never memorized, then you have to go through the process of memorizing it. But once you remember flip and multiply, right? That's really probably an easier way to think about it. Flip it, multiply. Flip the second one, multiply, then you're there, 15/4. You end up with the right answer.